Oh, come on. There we go. Hey, sorry, folks. Having a little trouble with the computer. Just a little. My technical difficulty, not the computer's fault this time. Today is Tuesday, November. What was that? 2nd. Tuesday, December 2nd, 2020. I was just listening to a big rally that Attorney Linwood and Sidney Powell are having in Georgia. Vernon Jones, the state legislator, was there. They had a cute phrase. They said, "Let's fight like Flynn." I like that. That's a great statement. Fight like Flynn. You know, they have, Sidney Powell said she has proof that China was involved in this, and that Governor Kemp took money from China to, that's all part of that $100 million apparently that he got for using the Dominion machines. I know there's so much stuff out there that you can see, but I want us to keep our focus on the Lord mostly today. But Sidney Powell said a couple things. She said, "We are starved for faith and freedom. We have allowed our leaders, the Constitution says that we, the people, are in charge of our lives, and the government has to do." Today's Wednesday, isn't it? Wednesday the 2nd. Oh boy. I wrote Tuesday in my book. No wonder I said Tuesday. It's boy, oh boy. Larry told us how time is literally speeding up. In actuality. Yeah. Thank you, Pam. Anyhow, Sidney was saying we're starved for faith and freedom. Linwood read from the Constitution that it is we, the people, who are the governors of our lives in this country. And we need to take the power back to the people. How do we do that? Larry told us how to do that. We have 3 weapons, and only 3 weapons that we can use legitimately. One is our voice individually. One is our voices together, a collective movement. And the third is our vote. Well, they have stolen our vote from us, and with these masks, they've tried to take our voices. We've got to rip these masks off, and we've got to stand up for for our freedom and take it back. Now, one thing Sidney did say, she talked about we need to get back to the emphasis on God, family, and country. She speaks like a woman, which I am. That is always what I thought the priorities should be. Actually, I put country way further down, and Larry set me straight on that. Now we have to have a balance between family and country. We do. And I think Larry admitted to being unbalanced in that. His focus was so much on country that he probably did neglect family in ways that were problematic for him. He did say at family gatherings he had learned not to discuss politics because he had to make a choice between standing for country or maintaining family relationships. And he thought that was important enough that if you were with relatives who didn't believe as you did, that you let it go. But he did say that if we don't maintain freedom, therefore fight for country, fight for freedom, that has to be a priority. Otherwise, we will lose our ability to have freedom of worship. We will lose our control of our self-control over family. They have, when the government steps in, they can take your children. We see that happening with Child Protective Services. A lot of times there are people who need someone to come in and help them and stand with them so they can keep their family. But it's just so much easier to grab the children out of the home and give them somewhere else. And remember the state legislator here that was murdered, I think it was last January, because she was involved in investigation of Child Protective Services and made the mistake of announcing on a Friday that on Monday she was making a public announcement. Well, she didn't live till Monday. That happened over and over and over and over again in this state. where people would announce, it's happened countrywide, you announce on Friday you're going to do something against anybody involved in deep state. But Josephine, believe me, I that's why I said it's really important that we keep a balance between country and family, because we have to take care of family. But if we don't take care of the country, we are going to lose our autonomy with family. Just like the vaccines being forced, there is the possibility that vaccines can be forced on children in school. If your children are in a public school, they have become wards of the state while they're at the school, and the school can do anything and everything they want, and you have no control over that. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And I'll tell you, I am proud of my grandchildren that are homeschooled, and I pray so hard for them as well, but especially for my grandchildren that are not being homeschooled, because I'm concerned about that. Now, I don't fret. I have finally, man, after a lifetime of fretting, I have to say that I am finally at the place where I have seen God do some miraculous things. And sometimes I have the temptation to fret, and I start into the anxiety. And I stop and I look at what's going on, because a lot of times what's happening when we go into anxiety, and I was just helping somebody on the phone today who has been in meltdown last night and this morning over some things that are happening. The issue is we do our best to handle what life has dealt us. But if we have too many issues coming at us all at once, sometimes the bottom drops out. We don't know how to hang on, and then we're faltering. So then we need somebody to come alongside and help. Because when your emotions, remember I say this over and over and over again, when your emotions take over, that's the central part of your brain. When that happens, you can no longer think. The frontal part of your brain is where you do your thinking. And if those emotions are released in the center of your brain, it floods your brain with the emotional chemicals and shuts down your ability to think. And so it is imperative, when that emotion overwhelms, that we have to give our body time to calm down. And it can take hours. There's a little difference in how long it takes men versus women, depending on the situation. That's not always true, but it's common. We have to give ourselves freedom to feel the emotion, because the chemical is not going to drain out of our body until we have allowed the chemical to do what it needs to do, okay? It's the fight or flight chemicals. That's where all this anxiety comes from. We have to force ourselves to take every thought captive, and that is hard to do, to take thoughts captive when your emotions have taken over. Okay, that's just really telling somebody to take their thoughts captive is a little unrealistic. Okay, but here's how you do it. You start thanking God in everything. And that can really make you mad sometimes, because you don't want to feel grateful when you are overwhelmed with negative emotion. But we have to be obedient to God. It is commanded. We don't have to feel grateful. He doesn't say that in that verse and not in that context. We're to pray without ceasing, and in everything give thanks. Because we have to remind ourselves that God is in charge. And when we start fretting, we think we're in charge and we have to solve it. And that doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. That's entitlement mentality, that God's got this. Entitlement mentality is not healthy for you or your family or the country. So Barr's statement, people are up in arms. What's wrong with Barr, and why is he this and that? I listened to Coach Dave live this morning. Dave Daumenmeyer took 30 men, a few women were in the mix, took 30 people, 30 adults. Mostly men, a few women, a few wives came along. And they went to William Barr's house. And Barr came out and spoke with them. And they laid hands on him and they prayed for him. And he accepted their prayer, and they had a very good conversation. So they were a little upset that Barr is saying that he has seen no evidence of fraud. We have to listen a little differently. Remember what Larry's taught us. We have to listen differently. Because a lot of times they speak in code. A lot of times it's like a white lie. You haven't blatantly told a lie, you have told the truth, but you have misled by the words you have used. So no, Sidney Powell today at down in Georgia, where they're having this rally right now, Sidney Powell said, I have all kinds of evidence. We have been so busy gathering evidence, but we have not taken any of the evidence yet to the DOJ. So when Barr says, I've seen no evidence, that means nobody has come to him presenting evidence yet. Okay, so what he said is true. He hasn't seen the evidence yet. Therefore, it is not his time to act. Now, is he responsible for gathering evidence? Well, isn't that what Sidney Powell's doing? Isn't that what Giuliani's doing? You know, we have to remember division of labor, and we can't expect the president, we can't expect Barr to be the one doing it all. They have to depend on people under them to bring it to them. So we have to be patient, folks. So I'm going to go through a few scriptures, and then this is probably going to be a short program. Nahum 1:7, the Lord is good. He's a refuge in times of trouble. We're in times of trouble right now. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. He cares, this is Nahum 1:7 again, he cares for those who trusted him. God cares about what we're going through, and I believe very strongly God wants us coming back to what our original purpose was when this country was founded. Hey, Morgan. Welcome, ma'am. Hebrews 10:23 says, let us hold unswervingly. What does unswervingly mean? You know, chaos. It just goes in circles. It swerves and swerves and goes round, and you just want to go crazy because everything is stressful. Okay? Let's hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. So we're professing hope in Jesus Christ. We're professing hope that God is sovereign. He's not letting things happen outside of his control. Satan can't even do what Satan does without getting permission. Remember, that is in Job 1 and Job 2. Hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, Hebrews 10:23. For he who promised is faithful. And then down Hebrews 10 verses 35 and 36, do not throw away your confidence. Don't throw your confidence away in the Lord. We have to be careful where our confidence is. Don't throw it away. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere. I love that word, persevere. Sometimes we have to persevere to hold on to faith when we're feeling anxious and fretful, right? So you will receive what he has promised. Now, Hebrews 11:1, when it's talking about this chapter on the cloud of witnesses who have been faithful to God and are watching what we're doing. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we don't see. So we don't see the end result yet. But look, we have to remember who God is. God is angry about the destruction of innocent life. Abortion is not just murder. Abortion is a sacrifice to the demons of hell. It is a sacrifice to Satan. And they are even starting to admit that now, that they bring in witches and warlocks to come and do their, quote, prayer, do their incantations in abortion clinics. I've heard this stated by people who have actually done it. And this is sacrifice to the idols of Baal and Moloch. That was the most heinous thing that ever happened in Israel before their destruction. And I mean, for hundreds of years, this has been God's way. You don't sacrifice your babies to the idols, to these false gods. We had a choice in our election between life and death, blessing and cursing. If you choose life, you will be blessed. If you choose death, you will be cursed. Biden stands for death. He wants to give money back to Iran and start their nuclear program up. He wants to abort babies until they are born, and maybe even afterwards, like California and Virginia governors have said is possible, and New York. He wants, this is a culture of death that is coming our way. But the people who want the culture of death have stolen this election from President Trump. We, the people, God sees that we, the people, voted overwhelmingly for life. Not to mention, God promises to bless those who bless Israel and pray for the peace of Jerusalem, which our president has done for the first time in history. God is consistent with his character and his nature and his promises. And therefore, I stand in faith that this is going to come back to Trump staying in office. Now, who he is and what's coming with the COVID thing and all these other things, and as we march toward the end of days and the coming of the Antichrist, who knows where we will be, but I believe we still have time. God expects us to fulfill our mission that was stated at Cape Henry 400 years ago, when we claimed this land was claimed for Jesus Christ and the promise to spread the gospel throughout this land and around the world. And when I see people like Linwood, Vernon Jordan, Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, Michael Flynn now is speaking out, General McInerney, the things that these people are saying, President Trump and his rallies, why are the leaders of our country, politicians, not even politicians, lawyers, military, where are the preachers? Where is our black-robed regiment? These preachers who want to stand up there in their black robes and talk about how God is love. Yes, he is. How God gives grace and mercy. Yes, that is who he is. That's what he does. Where is the standing for righteousness, the speaking out vociferously against evil that is leading us to destruction? We need to be contacting pastors and saying, what are you doing? Get on board here. And we need to have people at the governor's mansions demanding righteousness. I finally found out that somebody that I had admired who was in local government, I didn't see his name on my ballot. And so I thought, what happened? Did they take him out during the primary? Well, I just saw his name come up again yesterday. And so I am going to reach out to him as I had reached out a year ago from Maryland to this local representative. I need to get on board with him. Let's do this. He has presented legislation, either he has or he is getting ready to present legislation to make abortion illegal in Arkansas. I can get behind that. We need to push in Arkansas. If you're in Arkansas, we need to push our legislators to do that. The silence in heaven mentioned in Revelation. I don't know if we're there yet or not, Donna. I really don't know. Think of this. In Genesis 18, verse 10, Sarah was told that she was going to have a son. What does she do? She laughed at such an impossibility. That's verse 12 in Genesis 18. She's laughing. Well, God or the angel or Jesus or whoever it was didn't take kindly to that and knew that she was laughing behind the tent flap and saw, I know you laughed. The Lord's response was powerful. Verse 14, is anything too hard for God? Is anything too hard for God? We have to remember who God is. He parted the Red Sea and then crashed it down on the heads of Pharaoh and his soldiers. We have got to remember who God is. He stood in the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refused to bow down to an idol. He sent an angel to shut the lions' mouths when Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. He helped guide. He was there with David and helped him learn to take on a lion and a bear when he was just a lowly shepherd, the most despised job in Israel back in the day. And he guided that rock right to the spot in Goliath's forehead where it would take him down. We can't forget these stories, folks. We can't forget these stories. That's why we are here on Larry's channel, remembering the things that he did and who he was. He was going up against a Goliath in the deep state. Okay, so he hasn't won yet, but he set so much in motion. We're still waiting for Durham to do something. But did I hear that he has been appointed as special counsel. So, he's doing things behind the scenes. This is not over yet. And I agree, April, no weapon can prosper against God's people or our president or against our land, because they are coming against God's anointed. And that doesn't stand. So don't give up. So here's our action point for today. There's 2 today. I took out yesterday's video in the description box, had the list of all the state Senate, the majority leaders and speakers of the House and majority leaders in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Right now they're on break. I have put in the description box below Governor Kemp from Georgia, the governor of Georgia, Governor Kemp's contact information. There are 2 phone numbers, and if you go to georgia.gov, scroll all the way down to contact us. There's a place to put it in an email. We need to contact him and ask him to open up. And Vernon Jordan, as a representative in the state legislature, said we want him to call a special session to deal with the Dominion machines and the stealing of the election. Stacey Abrams, I understand, was very much involved in this. I saw the picture of the truck that had pulled up behind the building to haul off the Dominion in one of the counties, to haul off the stuff. The governor has called for them to now reset the machines for the runoff election for Senate. But if they do that, then they are wiping out all the proof of the fraud in the election right now, which, of course, if he took $100 million, he don't want the proof out there. So they need to, they need to, and the judges have flip-flopped on rulings on whether the machines can be wiped or whether they need to be the information left on there. So Georgia's a hot mess. So that's something we should be doing. And Pam, exactly. People are paranoid about the election. We're paranoid about the vaccines. We're paranoid about COVID. For crying out loud, folks, that's chaos. And who is the author of chaos? It is not God. So stop caving in to Satan. Take your stand, according to Ephesians 6. Take your stand, and let's stand up against these people. I was planning on reading something from Luke 2 today, and I didn't read it yet. And so I just kind of had a bandwagon to stand on and shout about today. So we'll go back doing a little bit in every chapter of Luke every day this month. And I'm sorry I didn't do anything with Luke 2. Luke 2 is the chapter where that's the Christ's birth. It's a very long chapter. It's talking about the shepherds. And for unto you is born this day a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. Christ the Lord. Christ is his title. He is the Messiah. He is the Lord. The Lord. Is he Lord of your life? We have to make him Lord. And if he's Lord, then we as his servants are going to be obedient. And I'll tell you, when I'm preaching, forgive me for even using that word. I don't feel qualified for that at all. But I'm speaking to myself. So what I'm telling you is something that I needed to hear. And the Lord said it to me today. And it was really sweet. Before I got up this morning, I was praying. And suddenly there was this conversation going on in my head, and it wasn't anything that I was trying to direct. So I just stopped praying and just started listening. And, we have to be still before the Lord. And in order to hear God speak, you have to be walking in obedience. There are times when I have done, made some bad mistakes and I didn't hear the Lord. It wasn't until my life got quiet that I could finally be quiet enough to hear. And then he did start speaking, because I had repented of things that I had done wrong. I wasn't doing them anymore. I really was seeking his face. And then I heard him speak. Larry talks about in 28 Years to Nowhere, he talks about how he wanted a burning bush experience to tell him what to do. He wanted to hear God tell him what to do. He just felt like he'd sunk to the lowest of lowest. Exactly, Morgan made me laugh at the same thing. Being preachy. Yep. Forgive me. I'm a teacher, not a preacher, okay? Anyhow, when he felt he'd sunk so low and recognized the evil he was caught up in, he just really wanted God to show him what to do, because at that point he'd come to Christ, I think. And I'm not real sure just exactly how the timing of that works, because he never told me. But he wanted God to show him what to do. He never heard a voice. He never saw anything. He said maybe even have it scroll across the bottom of the screen on the TV, which, some people have actually seen. But he woke up the next day knowing what he had to do. He had to tell the truth. And while he was telling the truth about the Clintons, he had to tell the truth about himself. And so he's let us know what despicable deeds, some of them that he had done. Some things he didn't confess, but he didn't need to confess everything, and we didn't need to be nosy about it. God says that we're not supposed to learn about the evil deeds done in darkness. It is enough that we know fraud went on with this election. We don't need to have all the details, because we have enough details about what's going on that we can take action. So we can be calling the legislators, the leaders. We can call every legislator in Georgia and get yourself back into the legislative office and get this taken care of. We can contact every one of them. This is a national election over a president who rules over the whole nation. Therefore, anyone in the nation has the right to complain about something that happened against our president. We have to speak up. Larry said we have been given 3 weapons: our voices collectively, and our vote. We are a small group, so we have got to make a lot of noise to be heard. So let's make some noise. I also put the whitehouse.gov/contact, and I was sent some. I think I've seen McInerney, but I know there are other videos out there of McInerney and General Flynn and some of the things that they're talking about and revealing. But, even if I don't have time to watch everything that I'm sent, we know the election was stolen. We know there's fraud rampant everywhere. We know our president is struggling because he feels like he is standing alone. Please send an email to the whitehouse.gov and let the president know you have his back. You are standing with him. He is not alone. You are praying for him, and you will do what you're told to do. And that means I'm telling you to make calls. Let's make calls, because there are other people talking about that. Lance Wallnau has said, call every legislator in Georgia. All you have to do is go to state name, georgia.gov, maryland.gov, arkansas.gov, alaska.gov. You can get everything you need to know is how to contact your legislators or the legislators for those states. Michigan.gov, Pennsylvania.gov. We need to be active, because if enough people are speaking out, they're already being told, by so many constituents who are on the Democrat side to let it go and move on and let Biden in. And what do we do as Republicans? We stay quiet. We can't be quiet anymore. We have just, for 5 years, Larry's been saying, look at the space between your thumb and forefinger, rub them together. That's how close we are to losing this country. So we're there. We are there. And Larry said, if this doesn't go for Trump, we're done. So, and people are saying, well, there's always 2024. No, they will wrap it. I saw what happened in Maryland when the Democrats got enough power. They redrew districts, and there was no way for a Republican ever to win again. And Maryland does have a Republican governor, but he's a rhino of rhinos. That guy is so Democrat in his policies. He is so communist. That's why I fled the state. Anyhow, Laverne, I absolutely agree with you. We were born for this day, so let's get busy. I've got phone calls to make myself, and I am going to get off now, and I'm going to pick up the phone, and I'm going to make some calls. So let's do what we need to do. I've got to write the president. I haven't done that often enough. And we need to just, folks, I know it takes money to send letters in the mail. If you have a long distance plan on your phone and don't have to pay any extra for every call you make phone calls. A phone call only takes 10 seconds to say what you need to say. I know it takes longer than that to dial the number, but it only takes 10 seconds to give them a 1 or 2 sentence message. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to give your address. Just say what you have to say, speak over them, and hang up. And call and do it again, not too frequently so they recognize your voice. But, every legislator has the state office and the office, in where they're working, and then they have local offices. So call both. If you can get the phone number for both, do that. We've got to hold their feet to the fire. They work for us, and they have forgotten that. We need to remind them. So let's be strong and courageous, and let's get to work. We'll talk again tomorrow. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.